Now that all that is done, now we're going to do some of the final pieces. Like I said, we're going to save this 512K RAM, and we're going to go ahead and get that done. Let me pull one of these fresh ones out of the package. Pin 1 down here. Now, like I was explaining earlier, you see I've got my resistor networks here, here, and here. I face pin 1 up. Like I said, you don't have to. I put it to the left on these two. You don't have to. You could flip them any way you want. It doesn't matter. But all these other ICs, it matters. Pin 1's top, 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 top. Right, 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 right. This one's down. The clock module we will install shortly. That one's down. I've already pre-staged it. What I mean by pre-staging is typically they come like this. This is it, right? You can put it in there and solder it directly, but since the battery and the crystals inside, that could tend to be a problem if you get a battery that's already dead, because these are obsolete. They're not being made anymore. So it is quite possible. So instead, what I typically do is I use these round machine headers. They're female, right? Sockets. I was going to use these, but the spacing on these up here compared to what the actual clock module is just enough to be different that it just doesn't work. It's really, really hard to do. These, even taking a full 14 pins on each side, can be difficult. Now, with these clock modules, one of the things Fred discovered was that with this clock module, and the same thing with my 838 RTC that I use the BQ4802 instead of the 4847. And I do that because it's an external battery, it's an external crystal. So anything goes wrong with the crystal or battery, it's a super easy change. So with these, what Fred discovered was that pin 5, so pin 1 is right here, closest to the TI symbol. So pin number 5, if it's connected, it can throw an interrupt when the machine is turned on. And if so, it'll actually put your TI into a hung state, right? So it'll freeze. So the best thing to do is, if you're using one of these, this is how I do it. So as you can see, pin 5 is not even hooked up. So I clipped 4 of the headers off, and I plugged them in, skipped 5, and I did the remainder. I did only where the pins are, because even if you pull, I said like 14 pins, it's still hard to get them all in. They really don't line up correctly with the standard 0.1 spacing. So this was the easiest way to do it without risking you messing up pins or anything, and it will plug right in here, no problem. So let's flip this around. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit for you so you can hopefully see what I'm doing. I'll move this over a little bit. So as you can see, there's hardly any room any wiggle room at all. So typically the best thing that I do is, just like I did on all these other pins, I'll anchor one side, right? And I already put the actual solder point here. So I'll just heat it up, slide it over a little bit. And sometimes you got to get it just right. I try to get it where each one of these feet have a little bit of the actual footprint still exposed of the solder pad. Typically it can be a little difficult to do, especially if you're not directly over it like I'm not right now. So I got each side anchored. Well, I thought I did. Okay. Now I'm going to pull this board out just so I can take a better look. And it does look like it's pretty good. Take my solder paste, or not paste, I'm sorry, solder flux, the flux pen. I really like, I've tried a couple of different types, and I really like this one. It's really super easy to clean up. I bought this off Amazon with a refill, and quite a bit of y'all don't get motion sickness, so quite a bit of a refill. And it came with an extra felt tip pen piece that you can actually plug into it. But yeah, you make sure you got a really good clean tip, right? And what I like to do is use the corner, just barely. And angle it enough where it doesn't hit the other leg. Hopefully, no. And you just continue to do this. I even have bought a USB microscope to be able to inspect the solder joints if I really need to. And of course I go back and I hit the ones that I anchored. Pull this out. Flip it around. See it. Yeah, hopefully that'll work. Flux the other side. And we will do the exact same thing. This chip I had issues with when I first started doing this, just because it was, you know, the legs are just so small with this one, and there's not much room for error, right? But that's where your desolder braid comes in really, really handy. Like on all the other chips, it really doesn't take much. And these are real easy to bridge if you're not careful. That's one of the reasons I use that particular tip, because I seem to have a lot less chance to bridge an actual connection. Just want to hit these back ones again. So if you look real close, you could probably see some of the residue. Let's see if I can take it off with the it cleans up pretty good. So the next step I usually do is I'll turn around and solder in the remaining components. Typically the rotary switch, the dip switch, the two LEDs, selector switches, pretty much everything else. And the rotary switch and the dip switch are surface mount. Now the dip switch. First thing you want to do, you want to go ahead, it usually comes, oh, I know I got one, with a piece of tape over across, right? I typically take it off. It makes it easier to mess with. And you want every one of these switches in the off position, right? It goes on the board just like this. So off to the left, on to the right, just like that. So, and I'm now for the hex switch.